Hi, Susan here. Okay, this is part 2 of my little mini series on sewing my designer t-shirt pattern with one simple machine and one spool of thread only. Let's get to it. News and there's bad news. The good news is I've played around with this machine. This will not be a tutorial of the machine. That'll be another video itself. But I played around with the machine. I'm liking what it can do. It has really good basic stitches here. That's all I really wanted, plus an all-in-one buttonhole. And it also has stretch stitches alongside the straight stitches or the regular stitches, decorative stitches. So I'm liking that. The bad news is that I made the t-shirt up already, but the footage did not come out well, and I'm actually not liking some of the application that I did on this t-shirt, so we're gonna do it all over again. Just to note, this is my t-shirt pattern, which is a PDF downloadable pattern in sizes, I believe, small to extra large. You then put it together. I cut a medium. I explained all of that in the first video. Please don't miss the first video. And let's put this t-shirt together. So I'm going to get the back, bottom piece, with the top back piece, right sides together, and then that's going to be stitched. I'm kind of liking these stretch stitches because this has to go around the body. This is the back panel. This one is nice because I think it'll give me an actual stitching on the right side as well, so that it looks like it's stitched properly, as well as having somewhat of an overcast. That is to put this on stretch. As you can see here, I have to move the width to at least 4. And I'm going to move this stitch to this one. What I like about this machine as well is that it doesn't just have the 5/8 of an inch marking, it has the 1/2 of an inch marking as well. This t-shirt is a professional pattern, and it's a 1/2 of an inch seam allowance all around except for the neck band. So that makes it easy. Let's get it started. I think I like that, and I will continue. I like the way it looks inside as well as outside, so that's a win. Now we're going to put right sides together and do the shoulders. I'm just going to do a straight stitch first, and then some kind of overcast because I do not want my shoulders to stretch. So I'm going back to 0 for the width up here. I'm going to go back to a straight stitch, about a 2.5 here. I've got it at the 1/2 of an inch, and I'm going to sew it, back stitch, 1/2 of an inch. Keep watching. I show you how to do the perfect collar with the vanity back, just like a professional t-shirt. Keep going. Now to overcast that seam, I'm going to put it on the 3-point zigzag here because I don't want it to stretch, but I do want it to stay stationary and sturdy. I've got it on 2.5 here, and I'm going to move the width again to about a 3 or 4 up here. I'm going right to the edge, but not past the actual straight stitch. Now I can just trim off the edge. and have a stable shoulder seam. So to do the vanity neck, you have to have the one piece like that. And another half cut like that for the vanity back, which I will show you. Same width. Very important, this is 100% cotton fabric, lightweight fabric. There is zero spandex in this fabric. If you're going to be using spandex, that's a whole nother game, but I recommend for my pattern 100% cotton jersey. I'm going to fold this in half, putting shoulders to shoulder. I want to show you something. Here is the neckline, here is the band. The band must be at least 1 inch smaller than the neckline. Cut the wrong one. I'm going to trim off my band. So that I have that excess, and I'm going to sew now my band 1/4 inch. This is just a guide. It is correct for just 100% cotton, but if you have any kind of extra stretch, you might want to trim it off. Hopefully, as you can see, the band is smaller by at least 1 inch here on the edge, so it can stretch into the collar. I am now going to press it in half, and I'll be right back. Now technically the band seam should be about 1 inch or so away from the shoulder seam. Then I take and fold this in half to get the halfway point and put a pin. I will do the same here. Here's the band. I want the halfway point. Then I'm going to put the adjoining piece right there, a little less than 1 inch from the shoulder seam. And then I'm going to put the other side at the halfway point here. This then has to be stretched as it's sewn. I'm going to put a periodic pin in between just to kind of hold it in place. On that side, as well as this side. But this is controlled as you sew it. Now let's get to the machine. For the neckline, I'm going to use this non-stretch stitch here so that I can get a straight stitch and somewhat of an overcast or excess to keep the 3 pieces together. I'm going to put it on about 2.5, maybe the most 3, and I'm going to do the same up here for the width. Okay, I'm starting at the adjoining portion there near the back. I have all 3 layers lined up, and I'm going to start the stitch. just go in at the very edge, because this is only a 1/4 inch seam allowance at the neckline. Stretching it as I go. And there's a neckline. I'm going to press the excess down now. Okay, great. We have the collar there. And now it's all sewn together. It has enough give to go around and it's laying flat. I want to do the vanity back, which is to conceal all of that stitching in the back and looking professional. So I'm taking this extra piece that I have, I'm going to fold it in half and press it, and I'll be right back. Now with that piece folded in half and a little piece of it folded back, where the adjoining seam is on the back, I'm going to stitch it to all of those layers. From that adjoining piece. I'm going to stretch it just a little bit so it'll also help me out laying the collar nice and flat. Pinning it to all layers. I'm going to go all the way to the shoulder just like the other ones. So let me cut a little bit more of that off. Fold it back. And I'm going to straight stitch this back panel so that it can clean. I'll show you that in a minute, and so you can see the demonstration. But let me go ahead and sew from here to here first, all throughout all of those layers. Press this down on the excess to cover all of that stuff and all those layers in the back to give a nice clean back like a professional t-shirt has. Now this is going to be top stitch, all that excess to stay under. But there's your back top stitching. Now we're going to put we're going to go up here, stitch up, and then we're going to stitch about 1/8 of an inch all the way around the front. Okay, the most important part is done, and it looks professional. All of this is hidden. It's your vanity back. This is all stitched down. So on the outside, it's laying flat. Now we're going to get to the sleeves. Right sides together, put center notch, back notches together. I'm first going to stitch a 1/2 of an inch straight stitch all the way around, stretching where it needs to on the sleeves. Now to replicate what's closest to this kind of overcasting stitch on the back seam, I'm going to add that to the armhole. So I'm going to put it on a stretch stitch setting. I'm going to put it on this stitch, and I'm going to put the width till 3. Now it looks more like an overcast. I'm just going to trim off all the way to that edge. and press it. Now I've pinned the side seams from all the way underneath the arm, all the way down. I want to replicate this back seam that stretches because I want this to give as well when you put this t-shirt on. And I also want it to be unified. 1/2 inch. Now I just have to trim that off to the stitch, but of course not into the stitch, and press it. So it looks great inside. $1,000,000 question is, how am I going to hem this? So let me experiment. So that does stretch nicely. So let me keep it on stretch, put it back to 0 on width, and let me just do the basic stretch stitch again and see with one layer if it looks good. It's a little too thick, so I'm going to switch it back to 0 there, put it on a regular stitch here, a non-stretch, and let's see what it looks like if I stretch the fabric as I go. That way, after I steam it together, it will still have give, where this has just as much give but looks too home sewn. Now I'm just going to turn up 1/2 inch on the inside. So the challenge is 1 spool of thread only, so I can't use a double needle. What I'm going to do is put it back on straight stitch, 0 width, and the regular straight stitch. I'm going to straight stitch at about 2.5, 3 on the inside, 1/2 inch, and stretching it slightly as I go. The same on the sleeve hem. Then I'm going to turn this to the right side. And add the second stitch very close to the first stitch. And when it's steamed in, it should be fine. Bam! Alright, so that does look a lot more professional than the original. The first one I did looked way too home sewn with the stretch stitch and just turned back like that. The collar not being finished with the band. And the inside having way too many different more home sewing type stitches. So to make it look more professional, we have more of an overcast type of stitch all throughout this entire t-shirt that allows it to stretch. I did not have a double needle and I did not have a good foot. I said this was with one spool only, so I did it by eye. But you have now a good professional t-shirt with the professional back, vanity back, that you can add your tag to. So there you go. Designer t-shirt pattern, professionally done with one simple machine and one spool of thread. Save money, get the t-shirt pattern. The link will be in the description box. Get that sewing machine. I liked it a lot. The link for that will be in the description box. Subscribe, comment, let me see what you did with my t-shirt pattern. Thank you. Bye-bye.